Hi, welcome. My name's Steve Reed, owner of Steel Curtain Boxing in Warwick. I am here at beautiful Cuisinart restaurant in West Warwick with my good friend Brittany Storti. Brittany is one of my newest members of the gym, and she comes here tonight. And most of know that I'm already in recovery, but Brittany actually just celebrated her 5-year anniversary from alcohol and drugs. And she has an amazing story. And not only that, but she was a Rhode Island athlete. She was a bodybuilder. And that's a little bit what we're going to focus on tonight because Brittany is also in recovery from eating disorders. So thanks for being here, Britt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
All right. So how old were you when, you realized you had an eating disorder? And tell me a little bit about that.
So it started, well, I come from a big Italian German family. It's all about the food. And so growing up, that's what it was. And the best I can pinpoint my eating disorder actually starting was when I went to the doctors with my mom, and he came up to her afterwards and he said, your daughter is overweight for her age and her height, and she needs to start watching what she eats.
And what age was that?
8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And where did it go from there? We're also going to touch base on the substance and alcohol use. Mm-hmm. But what would you say kind of came first? Of course, you were diagnosed with the eating disorder. Mm-hmm. How did you take that at 8 years old?
Well, so that was the start of being put on a lot of diets. When the doctor told my mom that, all I heard was, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I made up in my mind that my parents were embarrassed of me because of the way I looked.
Yep.
And therefore I was embarrassed of me.
Right.
And so that started a lot of diets. But because, being a kid, you want your snacks and your desserts and whatever. So I would hoard food and I would hide it. And,
which is basically the definition of that eating disorder that you see on,
right.
This is all, I've worked in treatment, and this is all new to me, what we're talking about tonight. So mm-hmm. I'm very intrigued. And, I see you in the gym, and you're an amazing athlete. I see your intensity. We'll see how far you want to go with the boxing part of it. But, like I said, this is all new to me. So, go ahead, keep going
on. So that progressed. I gained more and more weight. I couldn't hide the fact that I had an eating disorder because of the weight I was gaining.
Yeah.
And that lasted up until I was 16. I got to nearly 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And I had the lowest self-esteem. I hated my body. I felt like everybody else hated my body. It was all I ever thought about. And I had certain points where I was suicidal because of how...
That's what I'll be asking you. You went to Prout. We discussed. You did go to Prout.
Yeah.
Mean Girls.
Well, I think that's high school, though.
Yeah. But a little tougher being in with the eating disorder.
Yeah, well, actually, through my own research, I found that about 50% of teenage girls struggle with an eating disorder.
Okay.
And 30% of teenage boys.
Yeah.
So it's not just a girly addiction
it's
or
the
disease.
Society we live in now.
Right, exactly.
The fast food, everything else that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
The stigma behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you were embarrassed. You actually thought you knew. You actually thought your parents were embarrassed of you, so
Hmm.
automatically that becomes part of the stigma, also.
Right.
Um, how did you evolve through your teenage years with this?
Well, I got to a breaking point where I was just so unhappy, and I actually self-harmed, and my parents found out about it the next day, and I was crying and everything, and the only thing that I could think of that would make them happy was me losing the weight.
Okay.
And so I asked them for a personal trainer. They got me a personal trainer, and the weight started to come off, but it didn't come off fast enough for me. And that's when I started purging as well.
Okay. Um, there are different definitions of eating disorders,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the purging,
Yep.
the hoarding. Are there any other?
Yep. Well, so I identify as a recovering anorexic, bulimic, and compulsive overeater.
Amazing how they
Mm.
can label, huh?
Yeah.
Um, how were you hiding it well? Um,
At first, yes. And then I started to lose weight very rapidly. Very rapidly.
when you were
I was
purging,
I was purging, I was using laxatives, I was using diet pills, I was restricting, I was over exercising. You name it with this disease, I did it.
what were some of the side effects from the purging? I've known some of it of the esophagus.
Yeah. So I would occasionally throw up blood. Um I to my at my lowest points, my hair would fall out. Um and then that lasted a while, and even when I went into college, within the span of 2.5 years, I had lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. And still, you didn't think you looked. Is that what you usually don't look? Think you still look good, or
I wanted more.
you wanted more?
I
Yep.
wanted more.
It is quite intriguing how that we look in the mirror and we're both in recovery, and
Mm-hmm.
you look in the mirror and you're just not happy with what you see,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really it's what's on the inside of going through our head of what we talk about.
Yeah.
Tell me about the help you seek. And how old were you when you?
So I really did not seek help. I
Let,
It
let's
kind of
let's backpedal.
felt.
Yeah, let's backpedal a little bit. What
Yeah.
substances?
Hmm.
Did substances come along during this eating disorder?
Not until I was 21.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, I was actually mostly afraid of the calories of alcohol, and so the way help happened was truly a God thing. Um, I had to come home from college. I got down to 92 pounds, and I could not function in a college setting. Um, my body was starting to shut down. It was very hard for me to breathe. I would become out of breath a lot. Because of poor circulation, my limbs would go numb a lot. And I had no energy, but I didn't I didn't care at that point.
and still there was no seeking help at this point.
So I got back from college, and one of my things was to watch the Dr. Oz show when I ate lunch to keep my mind off of what was happening. And he said something on one of the shows, and I wanted to look further into it. And so I went on his website, and on the corner of the page, it was asking people to write in about their eating disorders. And so I told my story, really, and my lifelong struggle, really. And then I must have written something good, because a couple days later, a producer called me, and they wanted me to get on the show and talk about it. And I'm like, okay, well, what could it hurt?
Right, right.
And then, so I got on the show, and I was on the show with three other women. One I'm very, very close with still to this day. And unfortunately, the other two have passed away
Oh,
as a result of this disease.
a lot of A lot of suicide. Now, and you said self-harm. What kind of self-harm were you
Um, cutting,
cutting?
but not often. It
Yep.
was more like I just reached that breaking point, you
Yeah.
know.
And that produces a lot of release.
Hmm.
The way it's explained, a lot of people don't know about cutting, and
Yeah.
they've heard it. And I've dealt with a few cutters, when I worked in treatment, and I get it.
Hmm.
You know, but attempts. Was there any actual attempts?
No,
No. Good.
no. And what I make up is that my anorexia was my biggest attempt because I didn't care whether I lived or
Right.
died.
Yeah. It's like the same as drug use. You just
Yep.
keep going, and I look at the overdoses, and people keep saying like, "Oh my God, don't they get it?" And it's like, no, they pretty much want to die at that
Yeah.
point.
Like
You
you're
know,
fully aware of the consequences.
yeah. So that's the sad part of it all.
Hmm.
What do you think was your lowest point?
Probably getting down to 92 pounds and having to drop out of college.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, you're back in school today.
I am.
Like
I
I
am.
said, you just celebrated 5 years
Yep.
of recovery. That's amazing. Feet
Hmm.
all by itself. They say we get our marbles back.
Yeah,
Uh, but let me tell you, tell me a little bit. Did you go away for treatment for this?
I did. So with the show, I was on there with Kenny McCarty, who owns Shades of Hope Treatment Center in Texas. And she, at the end of the show, we were all offered treatment, scholarship treatment.
Wow.
And everyone else said yes. And I said no to Dr. Oz. I said no.
Wow.
Um, but then I got off the show, and 2 weeks later, I had binged and purged, and I was throwing up blood. And for the first time, I was afraid of myself.
Yep.
And I called them up. I'm like, hey, is that spot still open? And they gladly took me in.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't trade that for the world.
What was going through your head a little bit? A couple things. What was like? I was at my lowest point. I tried to take my, family. Tell me a little bit. Like, was it the I don't care? Because the eating disorder is more psychological addiction.
Mm.
It's right up there with because it's not alcohol or drugs because you're going to run out for that.
Mm-hmm.
So eating disorder is right there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Same as sex addictions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychological addiction. And what kind of what was the support that your family had for you at this point?
At that point,
Did they know what was going? Like, did you share what was going on with Brittany?
they knew that the eating disorder had me, and
Yeah.
they were willing to do anything, but I wasn't ready to get the help until going on the show.
And we both know that's when that takes effect when we're ready, right?
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit after the treatment. Oh, first off, how long were you there?
I was in treatment for over 100 days.
Good.
Over 100 days. And it was the best experience of my life.
Yeah.
Shades of Hope definitely saved my life.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
I find the treatment, or even the support. Well, it's a different eating disorder. Do you have local support, or do you know anyone locally?
With eating disorders, especially up here, it's very, at that point back then, it was very hard to get support.
Right.
Like you have groups like Overeaters Anonymous, but back then there weren't any around, and
Right.
And it was hard. But after treatment, I had a solid good 2 years of abstinence.
Good.
Before any other addictions came into play.
Yep. Now, and one of my biggest pet peeves in this state is trying to get treatment of any sort.
Mm-hmm.
I just, helped a friend get into ad care, and they gave him 6 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I myself went away to Mississippi 4 years ago, and it extraordinarily changed my world
Mm-hmm.
and the level of psychologists I got to see.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, were there psychologists there or just or therapists?
At the treatment center,
Yeah,
um, both,
both. Yeah,
both, yeah, and they really know what they're doing, and the therapists themselves are also recovering addicts, so they know exactly the way I was thinking
yep.
because I would go to psychologists, therapists, whatever in Rhode Island, and like you're gonna tell me how I feel because you read a book. Are you kidding me right now?
I
Like,
know.
no.
Yeah,
But these people knew the way I felt. They had their own struggles. They were in recovery, and they were living proof that it is possible.
yep. That's the best part.
Hmm.
They tell me a little bit. All right, when did you get out of treatment?
I got out of treatment. I actually stayed in Abilene, Texas for a little while, and I got home November of 2012. It
Uh,
was my goal to get home for Thanksgiving.
what was your deal? What was in Abilene, Texas?
It was a great place to restart.
Really?
And, I'm from a very small town, small state.
Yeah,
Everybody
you're
knows
down
me.
there. Yeah.
And down there, it was just nice to just be me and not have
Isn't it?
any attachment to anything
Right.
else.
That's great. Um, tell me a little bit. What happened after? I know you're an athlete.
Hmm.
Did you ever think, um, in your wildest dreams? All right, let's backpedal a little bit more again. When did you decide you wanted to become a bodybuilder?
That kind of fell into my lap. But I had my bout with alcoholism first.
Yep. Okay. Let's then even back. Got home from treatment.
Got home from treatment, went to school, became a hairdresser, um, and I had a solid, good couple of years in recovery. And then I turned 21.
the,
And
the dreaded 21.
it's like that age just made it all okay again.
Yeah.
And I got mixed up with the wrong people. And I went from 0 to 60 with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, I totaled 2 cars, and I was also sexually assaulted.
Um, it's that addiction thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Will replace one with another.
Mm-hmm.
Happens all the time. I see it
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Um, for me, I wish it was working out, but it's not. Um, it's what was how did your family react to that?
Oh, they, I was an awful drunk. I was mean. I was defiant. I didn't care, how late I got home at night, what my parents had to say. So I was still living at home at this point.
Yeah,
And finally, after a few months, I was engaging in a lot of activities that were not okay.
yeah,
And they just basically said, if you continue in this behavior, you can't stay here.
yeah.
So
And how old are we at this point?
I was 22 or 23.
Yeah.
I
So
think I was
first couple of
22.
years, you kind of burned that right out, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of activities?
Um, like a lot of promiscuity, a lot of alcohol, drugs,
Yep.
just hanging out with the wrong crowd, wrong people.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We're not looking for successful people when we're drinking.
No.
Uh, what how old were you when you started with the recovery for alcohol and drugs?
I was just shy of 24.
24. So it didn't last very long.
No, but it
Oh yeah, I know.
it
We,
went.
we can get so much in that short time. Um, how did that affect your eating disorder at all?
The alcohol. No, it was.
So you stayed abstinent from the eating disorder.
It was more like I didn't care. I didn't care, especially after the sexual assault. I didn't care what happened to my body. I
Yep.
didn't care how much I was drinking, how many calories I was drinking. I just had lost any sense of accountability,
Yep.
I guess.
Don't care.
Yeah.
That's our war cry.
Yeah.
Did how'd you go about, all right, let's go. How far did you have to go down to realize you had an issue with the drugs and alcohol? Did you think you had an issue with the drugs and alcohol? That's the question.
Oh, I knew I'd have an issue with drugs and alcohol before I took my first drink.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, here we go. This is the ride.
Oh yeah, I was 15 thinking,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm messed up.
Yep.
My family is a train wreck. Here I am
Yep.
showing up for roll call.
Yeah. And then it's really not until something tragic in your life happens that makes you
Exactly.
really think about it.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
So that happened. Did Brittany say, you know what? I'm gonna get recovery from this now?
Well, so I had to put down.
Tell me how you surrendered.
It was like a year-long process.
Yep.
My sister passed away when I was 23. I was still heavily drinking at the time, and alcohol took away my family from me, for sure.
Yep.
And it took away a lot of time that I could have been with her.
Yep.
And I tried to stop drinking a little bit, and trying does not work. You either do it or you don't.
Yep.
And then it didn't stop until I found another addiction.
Yeah.
And that was bodybuilding.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was at the age of 24.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just celebrated 5. How deep did you get into bodybuilding, man? What brought you to that?
So with drinking, I became a binge drinker on the weekends. So I wasn't drinking every single day like I was. With the lesser amount of calories that I was consuming, I was starting to lose a lot of weight.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, I'm not even trying at this point. What happens if I actually do try to do something with this?
Right.
And then I started lifting, and I fell in love with it.
And the alcohol kind of got in the way of that?
Well, yeah. I realized there was like one night a week where I could have like a free meal or a drink or whatever, and it just was not working for me anymore.
I want that meal.
Yeah, well, it wasn't working for me anymore, and then I got to that point where I'm like, why am I trying so hard to defend something that does absolutely nothing for me? That
That's
only
big.
takes away.
That's big because to find something that important to you
Mm-hmm.
that overtakes the alcohol and drugs. I struggled. If boxing had done that for me,
Mm-hmm.
I would, that would have been great. But hats off to you for having that. That's a blessing alone.
Yeah.
To have that come into your life.
Definitely.
So, and I know we'll get into that. I've seen pictures. What was the and I know damn COVID got in the way again.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit, up to that point, what was going on?
It was absolutely intoxicating to see exactly what my body could do, how it could look, and to be able to push my body to a point that many people cannot push their bodies to.
Yeah, that's got to be, I get it, being, we're both athletes, and, the way that we get those endorphins raging,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. I watch you in the gym now. We hooked up I'd seen you on social media, and I was like, you know what? What if this girl wants to try a new workout? You came into the gym, and tell me a little bit about your boxing experience so far.
Um, it's it definitely came into my life when I needed it. Um, I believe for me, recovery is about movement and feeling something that cannot be felt with alcohol, drugs, with an eating disorder.
Yeah.
It's like feeling something outside of yourself that doesn't overtake you but empowers you.
Yeah. You said it came into your life at when it did, and unfortunately, you relapsed not too long ago with the eating
Mm-hmm.
disorder. What was that relapse like?
So that relapse happened after I was in competition prep for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And my competition got canceled 2 weeks out because of COVID. And at that point, I was 5% body fat and I was hungry, to be honest. And, but anyone can tell you from any competition, even in post show, it's very difficult to not binge
Yeah.
for someone that doesn't have an eating disorder.
Right.
So for me, it just came back like crazy. And it was like my worst nightmare.
Yeah. Um, what did it consist of? Like, what? Tell me. Again, you're saying something that people have never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
So the people are interested, and they may be able to identify what's going on, and hopefully we're helping somebody else out there.
Yeah. I felt like something I had been working on for 4 years had been taken away from me.
Yep.
And I wanted to feel full again. And I wanted to feel comfort. And I knew that food was a source of comfort at some point in my life.
Yep.
And I was so, my self esteem was so low. And it was like a vicious cycle, eating just to numb out.
Yep.
And then purging was happening as well again. Um, and it was awful. I was an awful person to live with. I was stealing food, not from stores or anything, but from
Yeah.
my fiance.
Yeah. Brittany got engaged last weekend, so it's another big movement in her life. How did Cam? How did Cam take this?
The relapse was hard because I think the hardest thing for family members is to realize that it's not their fault. And he took on so much, and he's done everything he can to try to fix it. And
Yep.
I couldn't ask for a better man, really.
Yep.
Um, but it was hard. And then with my relapse, it got so bad I chose to go back to Shades of Hope to get help.
You did.
I did.
Okay. How long did you go back for?
I went back for 30 days.
30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing that, you get right back on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the treatment this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a difference between when the first time we go and then the relapse treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find it differential or?
This time around, it was a lot about grief that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, you find those little shadow. There's actually a movie, The Shadow Effect, and I think I told you, I'll let you watch it. It's if we have these things in the shadows,
Mm-hmm.
then if we don't deal with it, it'll deal with us when it comes and shows its light.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that also,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's missing in a lot if we don't stay on and keep looking for what's in that shadow.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the grief.
So when I lost my sister, I was there for everybody else but myself. And I never dealt with it. I kind of just, continued drinking, then went to bodybuilding. And then there was never a point where I was like, okay, I need to work on this because I lost my best friend.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much of my eating disorder how much it came out in my eating disorder. That it's really a form of self-harming to eat to that extent,
right.
to engage in those eating disordered behaviors.
Yeah.
But this time around with the grief work, it came out, and it was life-changing, completely life-changing.
What and I know we all deal with triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you have triggers or something that you know, for me in recovery, you know, I could be watching a movie and it doesn't bother me. That could be alcohol, and it wouldn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm watching a movie with a lot of cocaine,
Mm-hmm.
You always get that thought, oh my God, that looks good.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your triggers that gets the mind going, but you're not gonna the impulse?
Family functions.
Really?
For sure.
Well, being around my family makes me want to drink, but that's
It's more like I didn't know how to behave without an addiction.
right.
Like even with bodybuilding, that was my identity. That was my
Yep.
suit of armor that I was able to wear.
Yep.
And without that, it's difficult. Certain foods we cannot keep in the house still.
Okay.
I'm
And what would they be? Give me an example.
peanut butter. We cannot keep peanut butter in the house at all.
Really?
Oh no, yeah. Mm-mm. Everything else, it's
Well, bodybuilders they eat a lot of peanut butter, correct?
it depends who your coach is.
Right. All right. All right. So, yeah. What are some of the other?
If I
How about
am
restaurants? You go out to a restaurant. You ever? Yeah. The menu doesn't bother you. No impulse.
not for me because I've never been one to eat junk.
Right.
Really, like if I go to a restaurant, I'm gonna get chicken on a salad every single time.
Yeah. And you like that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I'm a big salad eater.
Yeah.
But when I'm at my lowest point with my eating disorder, it doesn't matter what food is there. As long as I get it and it makes me feel full or I need to get rid of it or whatever, I truly believe that food is an addiction.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of my, that I wish it's all about the discipline.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I envy you the way I'm still amazed at it of how you let the bodybuilding take over your alcohol disease. That's huge. And just for that point, I wish and it's healthy. It's actually, that's what I'm getting at. It's a healthy addiction kind of taking over the alcohol.
It can be.
It can be. And I know. And I'm not big on the weights or this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my own theories on what it does to the body. But and again, it's to the extent you did it at. Of course, it did turn into an addiction for you.
It did.
All right. So that's an amazing story. You have a lot of, we spoke. Yes, you have sponsors online for the eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. Thank God for Zoom, huh?
Yeah.
Tell me how your life has changed because of recovery.
It's changed dramatically. The eating is always going to be a process. It's not like alcohol and drugs. You can just put it down. It's like that tiger in the cage where you have to take the tiger out.
Yeah.
You got to walk it around and then you got to put it back in the cage.
Yeah.
And it's
that's a great way of putting it.
It's really difficult, but I'm in school now for mortuary sciences to become a funeral director, and I have my family back, and that's the biggest piece for me.
That is,
yeah.
You have yourself back.
Yeah.
That's what we're, we're gonna see what how far you want to do with the boxing.
Mm-hmm.
You got some talent there. I have some good prospects in my gym now. We play with it. We have fun. I
Mm-hmm.
had a trainer, tell me, I'd go back to the corner, and if I'm losing, he goes, "What's the matter? You're not having any fun." And he was right. And
Mm-hmm.
it switched and I'd go out and have fun again, and occasionally take the win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's amazing. I'm so blessed that you walked into the gym. It's an honor to know you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your engagement
Thank you.
and your 5 years. We got a whole lot going on here, and hope to see you in the future.
Definitely will.
All right.